Hello and welcome to Vegas Maniac Designs. Today we're going to be doing an opal bloom, also known as a mother of pearl bloom. Now for your pillow, you will be needing, if you're going to use the same one that I am using, you'll need Behr eggshell untinted deep base, which is 7300. That's the product number. I added some acrylic inks to get the rose gold coloring. I used Amsterdam magenta and Amsterdam bright gold acrylic ink and mixed it really well into the untinted pillow until I got to a shade that I was happy with. You will want to have your pillow be pretty much the same consistency as any other pillow. That's why you're using an eggshell. As you can see in this first one, my pillow was a bit thick, so I ended up with the second and third ones adding a little water to get it to move more freely. With glass, that can be a real problem, and I'm sure it's even worse on a canvas. Depending on what you're going to be pouring on, you really want to adjust your consistency of your pillow to smoothly flow outward without being too runny. It still needs to support your bloom paints. And I'm just moving my pillow outward to cover the entire 8-inch glass trivet. I mix my pearl pigments or interference pigments with just Behr 3300. I wet my pigments with a little bit of JoWa, which is 1 part Josanya gloss varnish to 8 parts distilled water. My pigments are Polycolor from Stone Coat Countertops, and in this bloom I have interference red, interference violet, interference green, and interference blue. I also am using this little piggy ball gown. The translucent white tube paint that I'm putting in between each layer of pigment is simply Behr 3300 untinted deep base with a very small amount of Amsterdam titanium white, just to create a translucent mixture. I don't want it opaque because it will show up too much, and I plan on using a white cell activator. Now you'll want to put down a interference pigment first, and then a layer of the translucent white, and then your next pigment, and so on and so forth. Your last layer before your cell activator is going to be that translucent white. You can choose the order of your pigments, but I would caution you, if you're using a interference yellow or something like ball gown like I did, don't put it on the top because it will take over and splash over the whole top. Not that that isn't pretty if that's what you're going for, but I thought that was a little bit much in the one bloom that I did that was like that. So as you can see here, I'm putting enough of the translucent white down before I put my cell activator on top so that the cell activator doesn't get lost in the pigments. And as you'll see me start to try to blow this out by mouth, you'll see how thick that pillow is. And of course, in the couple of minutes it took me to layer down 5 pigments and 5 layers of translucent white, it thickened even more because my AC was running. So I had a really hard time blowing it out, and obviously it's kind of ugly. But on the subsequent 2 that I do, I use my blow dryer so that it moves more freely. I'm tending to really enjoy using the blow dryer. I'm getting an effect that I'm happy with, as opposed to mouth blowing, especially on the larger blooms. And I probably got just a little too much cell activator on this first one, but of course it's experimental, so you don't really know how much you're going to need. I assumed I would need more, but it did lay pretty thick on the finished bloom. Yeah, it's a pretty ugly blowout, and as you can see now that I'm spinning, the pillow is struggling to get over that edge, so I just stick my finger in the outside to kind of soften that edge and get it to flow, which did work. But I definitely would not have wanted to try to work with that pillow again in another bloom because it was very, very thick and hard to spin off adequately. You really could use, I've seen this done on a white pillow. I've seen it done on a translucent white pillow. I've seen it done on a gold pillow. So you could really get super creative with softly tinted pillows. And they don't have to be translucent. I only did translucent because I was doing it on glass. You could actually just tint a white pillow. I think you get more pure colors, and it's less of a struggle if you're working with an untinted deep base than if you try to turn white into something else without it being really kind of thick looking in the background. There's not a lot of movement as I tilt this, and you don't really get to see the effect of the interference colors playing in that opal look. However, at the end of this segment where I'm creating the blooms, I do a flyover, and then you'll get to see the dry results at the end. So you do get to see how incredibly beautiful this effect is, as much as it can be captured with a video camera. As you can see too, I also struggled a bit to get that cell activator to break up and spread out, partly because the pillow was so thick and partly because I had way too much cell activator on that particular one. It dried fine. It looks beautiful. I'm not unhappy with it, but the white cell activator is quite thick in this. So we're done with that one. And we're going to move on to the next one where I do thin the pillow, and you'll see how much better it flows. Hold tight. I have the pillow thinned to a consistency that appears to flow quite a bit better. And you can see it coming out of the cup and really flowing nicely, nice and smooth. It probably could have been just a little bit thinner. But I think this worked out really well. I think that it flowed nicely and is much, much better than the first time around. It was quite bubbly, as you can see. I did end up with some bubbles in the dried pieces. However, it doesn't detract from how beautiful they are, and I'm happy with the overall look. I definitely will, when I do this again, mix it up a day or two ahead. And make sure that I have close to the right consistency, if not a little bit thinner, so that it can settle out and I won't have to struggle with the bubbles. And I've found that using my finger to move the paint out is actually kind of fun on the glass. So that's what I do with all of them. It worked out really well. It gets that pillow flowing outward while still maintaining that bounce of pillow in the center. So I don't know the color order that I layered these in. I just know that I put like a full end of the tongue depressor of pigment in each layer. I used quite a lot of pigment, and then I just drizzled the translucent white in between the layers so that it didn't take over, so that it wasn't too white. And you could really experiment with this and do some different things. You could even use like a pale yellow, something like that would be really pretty as well, depending on the overall finished look you're going for. But you can really mix things up here and do some wonderful effects. It's so pretty, and I'm kind of obsessed with it now. I was obsessed with interference paints and pigments before, and I think I'm even more so now. So just bear with me while I work through this. I want to do a very large round and turn it into a clock for myself, for my own home. Not that I don't have enough art hanging on my walls, but it's always, I don't have a clock. I don't own a regular analog clock, so This will be my first created clock, so this should be fun and interesting. I hope it comes out as well as these do. And when you're working on a much larger surface, of course, you're using much more pillow paint as well as much more bloom paints and cell activators. So it's going to be kind of trial and error as I move up in sizes to get the same effect over a larger surface. These little 8-inch glass trivets are ideal for practicing on, because if I don't like how they come out, I can just stick them in a sink full of hot water and soak the paint off, and it slides right off. So I really like practicing and playing and experimenting on the glass. I have a bunch of them, and I enjoy them. What's nice too about working on the glass is that you can, by using a translucent or transparent pillow, you can see the effect on the other side. I have a video previous to this showing the different stained glass blooms that I did, if you want to check that out. I did them a few months ago. They're really, really pretty, and I banded them with a wide jewelry banding wire, and they can be hung in the window, so they're really, really pretty. So obviously my blow dryer is doing a much better job at moving these bloom paints outward fully and covering the entire surface. I also think it's doing a better job at getting down into those layers of colors so that you see them all when it's finished. This one blew out much more evenly. The cell activator was easier to break up. It flowed over the sides nicely. And just a little tip, if you're going to be blooming on glass and you really want the base to be translucent, it's important to get that spun out completely. So don't add too much pillow. For these blooms, there is too much pillow for that translucent effect to really show up. But if you did want to be able to hang these and see both sides, you would want to make sure that you got that pillow extra thin. I didn't with these, just because I think I was experimenting and I wasn't really thinking about having that stained glass effect. But you definitely want that very, very, very thin without your cells getting all wonky and crazy and melty looking. I'm just using the fine point of my tweezer here to pop some of these little bubbles. It works way better than a skewer. Sometimes the wood tip of the skewer just pokes the bubble and moves it. It doesn't actually pop it, but this needle type of tweezer really works well. These were some of the lash tweezers I had from my last lash extension days, and I'm making good use of them now. I have about 100 pairs, so I might as well. On the final spin out on this one, you can see the cell activator did disperse much better. It's a little thick right now, but as it sat, that cell activator did sink in and become much finer. And you can see a little bit of that, the shimmer and the color variations in this one. So next we're going to move right on to the third and final one in this video. And this is where I changed things up a little bit and used my sparkly silver cell activator, and it really is pretty. On my final bloom of the three, you can see where I scraped out the cup to get enough of the pillow out, and that was a bit of a mistake. I did get some dried clumps in there that I end up having to pick out, but yeah, it's not the end of the world. When you're using Sherwin Williams Color to Go, you know that you're going to be picking out clumps and strings of dried paint. So that same thing happened to me. So I won't be scraping the cup again. That wasn't a good idea. So I'm popping the bubbles with my finger and just getting rid of what I can. I think I added just a touch more water again, if I remember right, just to thin it down even more, just to get that flow. That's the important part, is to get the flow. And I also do the tilting so that I can see any clumps that are floating around in the surface. So in a second here, you'll see me pull those out and get rid of them. They are good to go. So I'm getting my colors ready to start laying down. And this is the bloom where I put the TLP ball gown on top. I think I started with the red, interference red, and then did violet and blue, then green, and then the ball gown on top. And I probably should have moved that ball gown to the bottom. And I will keep that in mind because I don't want all of that gold. And it did end up being very, very gold when it was finished. But you can still see some of the other colors. I just like the third bloom better because I really am enjoying my custom sparkly silver cell activator. It works so well, and hopefully I can recreate it. I'm still using the original recipe that I mixed up. For that, of course, I wet my Pearlex Macro Pearl pigment with the Aussie Floetrol, and then I mixed it up really well and added Amsterdam Silver, and then added enough of the Aussie Floetrol to get the right consistency. And I haven't had to thin that one. It has behaved itself and stayed working the whole time, and I probably had it a month anyways. So I'm layering the same way that I did on the previous two: pigment, then translucent white, then pigment, then translucent white, finally translucent white on the top underneath the cell activator. And once again, I think I added a little much cell activator. I have a tendency to go a little hog wild with it, especially if I'm using my blow dryer, because I know I'm going to be able to push most of it from the center outward. But I love using the blow dryer on my blooms because I feel like I'm able to disperse that cell activator much better and to get a better mix of the colors that are deeper in the layers. I like to pull those bloom paints from the bottom to the top and really have them show up. And I'm pushing the paint out to the edge. It's already pretty close, so I'm pretty sure I did add more water to this last one. the pillow paint for this last one because it is flowing obviously much better. And this one does spin out much better as well, as you'll see. So I'm just gonna let you watch me finish this spin out, and then I will bring you in for a close-up and then finally the dried results. Be back shortly. All right, here we go with the flyover. This is the second bloom that I did. This dispersed really beautifully. And the one with tons and tons of lacing, this one here, that's the first one where I thought I used too much cell activator, but it actually isn't that distracting. It's quite beautiful. And the final one that I'm going to fly over is the one with the sparkly silver cell activator, which turned out really cool, and I'm excited for you to see this dry. It's very pretty, even though the gold is very predominant. And here we go with the dry results. So you can really see that play of color. It's just stunning. It's gorgeous, and I hope you try it. If you have any questions or need any help with your recipes and your consistencies, please feel free to leave a comment or hit me up on Facebook, Vegas Maniac Designs. I appreciate you being here, especially if you've made it this far, and I will catch up with you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.